Thank you very much. We are living in a virtual world. There is the famous saying, it is not the consciousness of men that determines the existence, but the social existence that determines the consciousness. Now it seems that the entire story turns around and we are actually living in a virtual world. In a virtual world, and the reality as such, it still exists, but it goes to the background. So we are confronted with the real world as the virtual world. And this is, of course, a problem. I'll go through it step by step in different areas, and it has, of course, advantages, and it has, I wouldn't say problems, but challenges that we have to deal with. It is new, at the same time it is not really so new, because we always, that's social scientists, we always deal with some way of constructed realities. Facts and science do not present themselves in a pre-existent shape. Rather, it is the experimental or observational protocol that construction facts out of the undifferentiated nature. And if we do not like what we see, we can rearrange the description of nature to have a more pleasing aspect. So facts make theory, but it takes a theory to make facts. And I start with two important points that I think actually that are important. We are dealing with a life region, meaning the surrounding, the environment as we see it and as we deal with it. It's a conference hall, it is a university, it is a country. So it is really where we are living and how we are living, in which way we are confronted with. And we as a society, as a group, but it is as well we as individuals. So there I speak of a mode of living, what we personally do with it, how we deal with electronics, devices, with whatever we have. And this is, of course, something, again, we have the wider aspect of traditions, and we have something, what do we do with it? So that, I think, was, now is completely gone. Now I want to go with personal recent experiences. I'm working as an academic, teaching at Central South University, the law school, and I'm living in a tiny village in Denmark, and the population of this tiny village has about the amount of people there that fit in one house here, one skyscraper. So it is a very tiny traditional village, and there I'm actually pensioner, old age pensioner, and arts collector. Both historical places, both changing over time, and we have a choice there, where I do not want to go into deep philosophical details, but where we have to think about what does it actually mean to talk of choice. Of course, we have the wider economic conditions, and we have something where actually our personal economic situation matters as well, be it being employed, be it self-employed, freelancer, being academic, or whatsoever. And this is where all these things matter actually, that we are dealing with our life regime and mode of living. My problem is permanently dealing with slides, usually I don't do it, but it's always confusing. And this is something actually relevant, where technology presses us into a certain framework or gives us the opportunity to develop some consistency. So what we have now is technology, and I'm now talking to me about me as academic, studying, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago, when a computer was actually very tangible. I could walk into the computer. It was about the size of this hall, and I could go there, and took about 1 day to get the results. Punch cards, very tangible things. Today, we have a watch that does much, much more than these computers. It's something we can touch the computer, but the outcome, it's something abstract. We don't know what it is. It had been lines of 0 and 1 and 0 and 1, and giving some idea of what it was. This was tangible for intellectuals, academics who could read these lines, not for everybody. Today we have the same in principle, but we can see what it actually is. We can see immediately on TikTok, on whichever platform, we can see even the translation of what I say. If it's correct, I don't know, but this is something that affects teaching as well. Today, where actually students can follow somebody who speaks in a foreign language, and they get the translation. We have slides, we have, actually, I didn't know up to recently, we can make photos of a foreign language thing, and we get it translated. Just pressing the finger on it. Very tangible. So this is the teaching situation today. And as I said, I'm an arts collector, little collection, small collection. But for whatever reason, I started recently to make a catalogue out of this. Every large gallery has a catalogue, and they have professional arts historians and whatsoever to work with it. And they studied arts history, they studied certain painters and whatsoever. I didn't do this. This is just a little activity if you want a small collection. And I thought it would be nice to have a catalogue. But working with a catalogue is difficult if you are not expert. So I got some assistance, DeepSeek, and later ChatGPT. It was a funny experience, because at some stage I thought, I'm communicating with them. Hey, how are you? I'm back again. And I need a little break now. And it was something amazing what actually happened there, what DeepSeek knew and took up a month later in a completely different context. It's, I don't know for experts, perhaps Chagall, you know, he has a little goat there, and it is transferred then into painting of coast things. So it is interesting, actually, what happened with me as well. I thought, yeah, you can't stay such a long time ago. Last time, DeepSeek said, enjoy your coffee. So it is developing as a kind of personality, it is developing as a kind of direct contact, which is tangible. Even if we do not see DeepSeek who is behind it, because there is not any who behind it, but this is something where actually we see exactly what is happening. Perhaps? No. So the catalogue at the beginning says, the catalogue was created jointly by DeepSeek AI, ChatGPT and Peter Herrmann. DeepSeek's claim, AI helps make diversity accessible without replacing human depth. And I think this last sentence, admitted by AI, is very important. We are not communicating with something that has understanding, that has deep understanding. We are communicating with something that has a huge knowledge and access to huge knowledge that we do not have, but that we should actually check, counter-check. This is another experience of this communication, that actually it tells you whatever you want to hear. And it is always, nearly always, affirmative. And if you bring something up, if you question actually DeepSeek or ChatGPT or any other AI, it says, oh, this is a great aspect. You make a really important point, and I have to qualify whatever I said before. So,
you can do like this one. Yeah.
So, the question is really one of that stands in the Chinese tradition of great unity. Confucius, DeepSeek, ChatGPT, all hugely important things are giving us little snippets of reality. And they may help us, but they may help us to recreate, to re-establish, to re-experience this unity. Because this is something we always have to keep in mind. It is about perfection, Confucius, perfection of ourselves in an environment, in this great unity. There is no such thing as I am without as I am in an environment, and this is I am as well with others. This is important, and this is something where actually artificial intelligence fails. That is at least my thesis, and it will fail for the next 100 years. I say it will fail for the next 100 years because I'm afraid, a little bit afraid, that this unity will reduce to technical means. This is something as a challenge, I said before, not necessarily happening, but this is something where we have to avoid that we actually adapt realities to the needs of artificial intelligence. It happens with translation. If we know, or not only translation, but as well dictating into a computer, if we know we do this, if we know the capacities of these instruments, we slow down, which may be not what we really should do, and we make short, clear sentences. Short, clear sentences are good for a presentation. If we want to be clear to somebody, I love you, or if we are very angry, we would not say this in a very clear voice. We are emotional in a positive sense, in a negative sense. And this is something where I think we have to be, on the one hand, with the new technology, there is something in its own terms less static. It is static as such because it does not move in its own sense, but it is less static. That mobile aspect is characterized by self-referentiality. It always produces what it already knows, and it is always in this circle. I should not say this because coming from law, this is exactly what we do in law. If there is a problem, a legal problem, we have another law, and so on and so forth. However, this can be transcended, and this is, I think, important for the context here. It can be transcended from outside, and the instruments can be then used for mobilization. Here, tradition plays a very important role. And the problem is that tradition in itself is as well static. Tradition is something that from the past, and the past cannot be changed and will not be changed. But we can make use of it transforming it and transferring it into a new context. Oh, there, I missed this. Sorry about this. But you know probably all much better than I do what this great unity is about. Not least the self-completion, the self-development in this context. Tradition, new technologies, a dynamic relationship if we use it as a relationship. If we say it's not their tradition, it's not their new technologies, but we can combine it. If thoughtfully handled, we can do it. And I want to go to three areas. One is medicine. And in medicine, artificial intelligence is, of course, hugely important. Although we have to be careful what it actually means. Because medicine is dealing with the human body, and the human body is very sensitive and is very challenging. But there are two things I think that are important. The first is mapping in the widest sense and making existence experience broadly available. Traditional Chinese medicine, there is a huge treasury of it that is difficult to access, experience that must be transferred from person to person, but where we can use artificial intelligence to mapping this. And the second is to overcome skepticism towards traditional Chinese medicine in the West. The traditional Western medicine is very stubborn and rejects everything that is coming from outside. It rejects everything that is not in the tradition of Western rationality. Another area, architecture. I've been recently getting in contact with a structural engineer and structural designer of the television tower in Berlin. He wrote to me as a structural engineer and structural designer who said between the worlds of architecture and construction science, I tend to agree with Joseph Beuys' wisdom, everything is art and everyone is an artist. This is already evident in the etymology of the German language, because even in Old High German, what one masters, knowledge, expertise, mastery was referred to as art. It is that which is created by humans. In contrast to what is constructed by nature. You probably all know this. I think it's an amazing piece of art, of technology, of integrating communication, because it is a bridge and a tunnel that is about communication, making people able to move. And it is, if you look at it, really nicely integrated in nature. And this is another example, and I just have had some photos here from the internet, don't say it to anybody, it's private use, where I think architecture, and I saw this especially here in the recent architecture in China, is going this way of looking at not just a building with 4 walls and a roof on it. It's trying to be dynamic, it's trying to be integrating itself into nature, into the environment, in different ways, because the environment is different. In different ways, because the need of these things is different. And it is buildings, it is about buildings, it is about roads, it's about these things, I don't know how they are really called. And it is as well in the different dimensions. And it is as well about the integration of tradition directly into buildings. even into modern buildings. Dynamic is a very important point here. Dynamic, allowing communication. Coming to sports, I want to go actually to something else, namely to arts. And there is something when the brush picks up the ink, it becomes animated. When the brush transfers the ink to the painting surface, it brings it to life. To animate the ink requires long practice. To animate it with the help of life, with the help of the brush, requires knowledge of life. Those who have strengthened their soul through long practice can only handle the ink, not the brush. Those who have been stunned by the pulsating life, but have not been able to form their soul through practice, can only handle the brush, but not the ink. Now I tried to change this, to adapt it to what we are talking about, to sports, to new technology. So I simply replaced something, the painting with the stadium or arena, the brush with the technology. There we have actually some instruments and some life, some soul, and we have to combine it. Now this is the rough script and this is the more cleared script. And I think it is important to keep this in mind, to keep in mind that what he said, it's Who Are You? I think the book from him, an ancient book on painting, that we have to put our soul into technology, because otherwise we have exactly then not a challenge anymore, but then a real problem. If technology takes over, if technology determines what it is. The soul, part of it, is tradition. It is as well a matter of what sports activities actually are about. It is about competition, but Confucius says actually we are not competing against each other, we are competing to improve, to perfect ourselves with others. This is something very important and often forgotten when we look at sports today. Coming to the conclusion, I mentioned life regime and mode of life, mode of living. The life regime, the wide surrounding the social classes, the social groups, the intellectual groups, whatsoever, nations. And this is then challenging with what we make out of it. And it is something going with tradition and with new technologies. This is something we can combine, and we have to combine. A challenge, not a problem. I said earlier it's very new what we are facing. And now I really want to have the last slide. It is here, well, this is not the last slide, it is here this traditional Chinese motive of a painting actually allowing us to enter nature to perfect ourselves. And as far as I understood from my little studies, from my little knowledge, it is about the privilege of self-development, being able to involve, to get back into nature. Not in terms of rejecting technology or something, but it is about making nature as part of ourselves and making ourselves part of nature. the great unity. I think it is important when we talk about new technology and even the future technologies to keep this in mind. Leonardo da Vinci, polymath Renaissance. So it is something where actually I would interpret Leonardo da Vinci, what he did, as a warning at that time already, when it was about rationalization, then it was about the legal systems, new legal systems, when it was about new economic systems of making profit, where he said, we are ones. Even if we are standing in the middle of it, we are part of a larger circle with new technologies. Leonardo da Vinci was polymath, intellectual, painter, artist, and a strange person because nobody can read what he wrote, because he was actually writing literally with a mirror, not having a mirror, but he was writing mirror writing. So you needed a mirror to be able to read it. Intelligence empowers sports. Technology shapes the future. I would not say human beings, we as human beings stand in the middle of it, but I think we have to be able, or we have to be willing to control not us, or still control us, self-perfect us, in the sense of going back, accepting this great unity. In this sense, thanks very much.